The Supreme Court just quietly changed 4 major gun laws. And if you're a gun owner in America, your rights look very different today than they did 6 months ago. The scary part? Most news channels barely covered it, which means millions of gun owners are walking around with outdated information that could land them in federal prison. Before we go one step further, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Here's the deal. I track every single court ruling, every state law change, and every federal update that affects your right to carry, and I break it down in plain English so you actually understand it. If you're not subscribed, you're gambling with your freedom. So click that button, turn on the notification bell, and let's make sure you never get blindsided by a law change again. Ready? Let's get into the 4 gun laws that just flipped upside down. Here's what just happened, and you need to pay close attention because this affects you whether you carry daily or keep a single shotgun in your closet. Over the past few terms, the Supreme Court has issued a series of rulings that together rewrote the rulebook on how courts decide what gun laws are allowed under the Second Amendment. The biggest shift came from a case called Bruin, and then the court followed it up with more decisions that filled in the blanks. I'm going to walk you through the 4 biggest changes, the ones that actually affect your daily life, and I'm going to tell you what almost nobody else is talking about. Let me break this down for you, starting with change number 1. The old test that courts use to judge gun laws is dead, completely dead. For decades, when a new gun law got challenged, judges would use something called interest balancing. Basically, they would weigh your Second Amendment rights against the government's safety concerns, and guess what? The government almost always won. That test is gone. The Supreme Court said courts now have to look at history and tradition. If a gun law doesn't have a clear match in laws that existed around the time the Constitution was written, it's probably unconstitutional. That sounds boring, but here's why it matters to you. Dozens of modern gun restrictions that were considered untouchable are now suddenly vulnerable, and lower courts are striking them down one by one. That means some laws you thought you had to follow might not even be valid anymore in your state. Now here's the crazy part about change number 2. The concept of sensitive places got redefined, and most gun owners have no clue. In the Bruin ruling, the court said states can still ban guns in certain sensitive locations. But then states like New York and New Jersey tried to label almost everywhere as a sensitive place. Parks, subways, restaurants that serve alcohol, private businesses, you name it. The court pushed back and said, no, you can't just declare the whole state a sensitive zone. Places like schools, government buildings, and courthouses, yes. Your local coffee shop, no. But here's where it gets tricky. Each state is still fighting this in court, and the list of banned places is different depending on where you are. If you carry in one state and drive into another, you could be breaking the law without even knowing it. Quick question before we keep going. Are you subscribed yet? Because my next video is going to cover the 5 states where concealed carry rules changed in the last 90 days. And if you drive through any of them, you need this information. Hit subscribe now so you catch it the moment it drops. Trust me, you don't want to learn about these changes from a cop standing next to your car window. All right, change number 3, and this is the one that really caught me off guard when I saw it. The Supreme Court clarified who can legally be banned from owning a gun, and the ruling is more complicated than most people realize. In a case involving domestic violence restraining orders, the court upheld a federal law that stops people under those orders from having firearms. On the surface, that sounds like a loss for gun rights, but read between the lines, and you'll see something important. The court said the government can disarm someone only if that person has been found to be a credible threat through due process. In plain English, that means there has to be a hearing. There has to be evidence. You can't just have your guns taken because someone made an accusation. That's huge, because it sets a standard that red flag laws across the country now have to meet. If your state has a red flag law that skips due process, it's now on shaky legal ground. Lawyers are already filing challenges, and several of these laws are getting struck down or rewritten. But wait, there's something even more important hiding inside this ruling. The court also hinted that lifetime gun bans for nonviolent offenses might be unconstitutional. Think about that for a second. Right now, if you have a felony on your record, even for something like writing a bad check decades ago, you cannot legally own a firearm. The Supreme Court didn't directly overturn that, but they dropped clues that told lower courts to look very carefully at whether those lifetime bans actually match the history and tradition test. Several federal courts have already ruled that certain nonviolent felons must have their gun rights restored. This is one of the biggest quiet shifts in American gun law in decades, and it's happening right under everyone's nose. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. The law is changing fast, and it's different in every state. Always talk to a licensed attorney in your area before making decisions about your specific situation. I'm here to keep you informed, not to replace a lawyer. Let me bring this to life with a hypothetical example, so you can see exactly how these changes might affect a real person. Imagine you're a guy named Mike. Mike got convicted 20 years ago for a nonviolent drug offense when he was 19. He served his time, turned his life around, got married, had kids, built a business. For 2 decades, Mike couldn't legally own a gun to protect his family. Under the old legal framework, that was just his reality. But under the new Supreme Court standard, Mike's lifetime ban may not hold up because there's no historical tradition of permanently disarming nonviolent offenders. Mike might now have a real legal path to getting his rights restored. Multiply Mike by millions of Americans, and you start to understand how big this shift really is. Now let's get to change number 4, and this might be the most practical one for you. The Supreme Court made it clear that the government can't just stack new restrictions on law-abiding gun owners without passing that history test I mentioned. That means laws on magazine capacity limits, assault weapon bans, waiting periods, and permit fees are all being challenged right now. Some have already been struck down, others are sitting in appeals courts waiting for decisions. If you live in a state with strict gun laws, some of those laws might not survive the next year or two. And if you live in a state with loose gun laws, expect your state to get pushback from the federal government that may not hold up under the new standard. Either way, the ground is shifting under your feet. Hey, real quick, did you know about 73% of people watching right now are not subscribed? That means 3 out of 4 of you are going to miss the next critical update when it drops. Don't be in that group. Click subscribe, join the thousands of gun owners who trust this channel for no-nonsense legal breakdowns, and let's build this community together. 1 click. That's all I'm asking for. Here's the part almost nobody's talking about, and it might be the single most important thing you learn today. These 4 changes don't just affect future court cases, they affect prosecutions that are happening right now. Here's what I mean. If someone was convicted under a gun law that has since been ruled unconstitutional, their conviction might be thrown out. If someone is currently facing charges for violating a law that doesn't pass the new test, their charges might be dismissed. Defense lawyers across the country are filing motions every single day trying to use these rulings to help their clients. If you or someone you love is dealing with a gun charge, you need to be talking to an attorney who understands these new Supreme Court rulings inside and out. An older lawyer who hasn't kept up could miss arguments that could literally change your life. And here's another wrinkle most people miss. Just because the Supreme Court rules one way doesn't mean every state listens right away. Some states are actively fighting these rulings. They're passing new laws designed to push back. They're rewriting old laws to try to survive court challenges. So while the Supreme Court pointed the direction, the battle is being fought state by state, courtroom by courtroom. That means where you live matters more than ever. 2 people doing the exact same thing with the exact same gun, one in Texas and one in California, might face completely different legal outcomes. You have to know your state, you have to know your local rules, and you have to keep up as things change. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Gun law is moving faster than at any point in modern history. What's true today might not be true 6 months from now. New rulings are dropping, new state laws are taking effect, and some of the biggest changes are happening before most gun owners even hear about them. This channel is your early warning system. Subscribe right now because the next video breaks down 3 specific things every gun owner needs to do before the end of this year to protect their rights under these new rulings. You do not want to miss it. So let's wrap it up. The Supreme Court quietly rewrote the rules on 4 major areas of gun law. The history and tradition test replaced the old balancing test. Sensitive places got limited, due process got reinforced for red flag and restraining order cases, and lifetime bans on nonviolent felons are now on thin ice. Together, these changes are the biggest shift in Second Amendment law in your lifetime, and most gun owners have no idea. Your homework is simple. Stay informed, talk to a qualified attorney about your specific situation, and never assume the law you learned 5 years ago is still the law today. Hit that subscribe button, share this video with a friend who owns a gun, and drop a comment telling me which of these 4 changes surprised you the most. Remember, I'm not your lawyer, and this is general education, not legal advice for your case. But knowledge is the first line of defense for your rights. Stay sharp, stay legal, and I'll see you in the next one. C. 2026 Script Scene Splitter AI GitHub.